والسلام على حبيب المصطفى وعلى آله وأصحابه وعلى من اتبع الهدى أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال عز وجل في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد: اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد إلى آخر الآية. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: من سمع سمع الله به ومن يراء الله به، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Respected Ulama Kiram, our seniors, friends, brothers in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I express my deepest gratitude and I'm very grateful for Abu Hazrat Maulana Ishaq Sahib for inviting us. I suppose this is an excuse to reconnect with senior ulamas like Hazrat ourselves. Though I'm not a Hazrat myself, Hazrat's already made me old, I'm still young. So the title that was advertised was talking about and to discuss and share some thoughts about contemporary fitnas. Now the word fitna, it's a very broad term. It comes in various different forms and different ways. There's fitnas within oneself. There's fitnas within family, there's fitna within the community, there's fitnas globally, and fitnas, they come in different ways. Your children are also your fitna. Your parents could be a fitna. Your spouses can also be a fitna. Innama amwalukum wa awladukum fitna. Your children and your wealth is also a fitna. So what type of fitna are we going to be referring to? Because this itself is very broad. So what I've decided to discuss is, and this is specifically, I know mashallah we have our elder generation here as well, but specifically for this new generation about social media. Now I remember when I was preparing a webinar, for our JK Fatah, when I was preparing a webinar back in November about social media addiction. It's on our YouTube channel. And it was quite a bit of a detailed webinar where we had a very lot of engagement, interaction with parents as well as people of same age as yourself, and we discussed a lot about the problems of social media and why social media in this day and age has become such a problem, and how we can navigate our way through social media addiction through the examples of Quran and Hadith. And I present a lot of ayat and a lot of ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ in regards to social media. Now I don't have the time. If anybody wants to know, it's on our JK Fatawa YouTube channel. It's there. You can listen to it there. But I just want to share some preliminary thoughts about social media. The first thing is that Hakim al-Umma Shaykh Hashim al-Thanwi, there's a book that he's written, there's a kitab that he's written, and I remember during my student days, one of our teachers used to always advise us to read this particular book. It's called Adab al-Mu'ashara, Social Etiquettes. And he said that Hakim al-Umma Shaykh Hashim al-Thanwi, when he was writing this book, he wrote it on the top of his memory. Basically, social etiquettes and how you interact with people. Yes? In there, Hazrat Masjid mentions that our Deen Islam is divided into 5 branches. And it's important for us to remember this. Our Islam is divided into 5 branches. There are 5 aspects that complete Sharia. Number 1 is you have the aqaid, Islamic beliefs. This is number 1. This is top priority. Sheikh Muhammad al-Awwam rahmatullahi in his kitab Ma'alim al-Ishadiyya, which is mainly for the students, he states that aqaid and beliefs is one of the highest priorities in Islam for a believer, because if your beliefs are not correct, then your amals are not correct. So first one is your aqaid, your beliefs, number 1. Number 2, he mentions ibadat. Number 2, second priority is worship. We have salah, zakat, fasting, hajj, nikah, tilawat al-Quran, dhikr, adhkar, etc. And all these daily supplications. That all falls within the remit of ibadat. Then we have number 3 is mu'amalat, dealings. Dealings here, mu'amalat, it refers to Islamic transaction, Islamic finance, your transactions, your earning, your livelihood, as well as nikah, talaq, etc. And then you have akhlaq, good character, good conduct. What does akhlaq mean? Is basically that behaving in a situation that makes you decent in front of people. Yes? You don't feel people are not threatened by you, and people are attracted to you based on your good conduct towards one another. And then finally he has mu'asharat. Mu'asharat, sorry, nikah comes into this, by the way. Mu'asharat is social etiquette. How you socialize with people, how you interact with one another, how you engage with other people. This is all the way from whether it be your siblings, whether it be your family, parents, whether it be your spouses, whether it be your colleagues, when you come into the masjid and interacting with your musallis, your fellow colleagues, your fellow work people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created our life in such a way that by nature we socialize with people. Yes, by nature. Human beings by nature have been created to socialize with other people. If you look at the lives of all the prophets ﷺ, not a single one of them you will find that ever lived a monastic life. They were never monastic life. They always interacted with the communities. Anbiya ﷺ, they were the leaders of the communities. Yes, they were the leaders of the communities because they were a source of guide for the nations. And for you to be a source of guide for your nation, you have to interact. So mu'ashara is something that is by nature embedded in every single one of us. Because of that, we need to understand and know the limits of how we interact with people. The guidelines of how we interact with people is because by knowing those guidelines, we are able to create social harmony. We are able to create harmony between ourselves. We are able to create peace between ourselves. But if we are not able, if we do not study, and that's why, when people talk about studying Islam, first thing is people talk about, okay, study about Aqidah. Another impression comes to mind is worship. But mu'ashara, social etiquette itself, is a discipline. Sheikh Abdul Fattah Abu Khudda rahmatullahi alayhi, don't worry if you don't know these names, okay? I don't know if you know these names, but they're great. These people are great ulamas and great scholars. He was a great Syrian scholar. He's actually written an entire book, an entire treatise just on social etiquette. It's translated in English. It's available on the internet. And in there, what he does, he kind of divides it into different chapters of how you interact with people. Simple etiquettes. Simple etiquettes that we take for granted. We may think, okay, what's so big about this? What's so significant about this? But the truth is, little things, they create huge impacts. They create huge impacts. And I remember somebody once mentioning to me, and again, this is not just, don't think this as just a lecture. I'm sharing my thoughts and my reflection. Think of it, I'm having a conversation with you all. And I remember one of my teachers was informed us once, when I used to study in the madrasa, and as well as, which has been taught by other people, senior scholars, is that when you're in the outside world, people will only judge you of your knowledge by 10%. Is that true, yes or no? Yes. Do you judge somebody based on their knowledge, or do you judge somebody based on their character? Which one? Character. Do you judge somebody based on how much knowledge they have, or by their character? Character. It's by character, isn't it, right? 90%, right, of weight the 90% of the weight bearing is on your character. Only 10%, probably less than that, is what your knowledge. Many people are not that much interested in how much you know, how you are as a person, how you are as an individual. Just sometimes, when it comes to marriage, for example, when it comes to finding rishtas for people, right? A lot of the time, what they do is that when they write a list of criteria, a list of preferences, you notice majority of the preferences are related to material things. What job does he do? How much is he earning? Does he have his own house? For the women, or is he going to live with do I have to live with my in-laws, or do I have to live separately? They have a long list of criteria, and right at the bottom, he has to be a good person. Whereas that's supposed to be at the top. Yes? The hadith mentioned, فَانْفُرْ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ, take the religion, take the character. Well, that now is being downgraded. Why is that? There's a lot of reasons we can give. One of them is social media. You notice people's criteria. People's criteria, preferences, for example, now has completely changed, especially in the last 10 years. How husband and wife are not expected to interact with one another, much of it is due to social media influence. There was another case, I'm not sure if anybody's been following, that I usually follow, but there was a case that there was an Arab couple, that they had a very social media influence. They've just gone through a divorce. I don't know what the names are, but they've just gone through a divorce, and it's really hit like a social media bombshell. That these two couples, that the whole social media was about them having that presenting how happy couple they are. But behind this facade appearance was nothing but just marriage abuse. There are so many cases that where people up front, they show to you, they misrepresent the reality, they show certainly in front of you that there's a happy couple, that they're so happy and they're so jolly, and any person that looks at it think, that is an ideal couple, that's an ideal husband, that's an ideal wife. Yes? You kind of idealize and you kind of fantasize a type of, you conjure a type of an ideal spouse. But behind that facade appearance, which is fake appearance, there was nothing but just abuse. Only when it comes to light afterwards, when the silence breaks, when they break the silence, they realize, subhanAllah, look at these people. We always thought that they were such a happy and a jolly couple, but they're going through problems. Yes? And as a side note, I always advise that, your family matters, they need to stay private. Never share your never share your relationships or your private matters on social media, because you don't need to prove anything to the world. So that's what I wanted to discuss. I've already hinted you some examples of how important it is to navigate through social media addiction. So let's go through point by point. As I mentioned, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by nature has created us social creatures. We socialize. What our social media doing is kind of revolutionized. In the 21st century, they revolutionized the way we interact and communicate with people. Virtual communication. Social media is basically all about, in a nutshell, is virtual communication. You communicate with people through virtual. Now we've got virtual reality. Now we can have AI. All of this is all interlinked. What is the purpose of this? What is this actually doing? It is individualizing people. It's individualizing people. When you socialize with people, right? I mentioned about etiquettes. What do you also learn? You learn behaviors. You learn behavior skills. So when you're interacting, let's say, with your teacher, right? You have like a respectful approach, right? And when you observe your teacher, the way he is interacting with you, you actually learn social etiquettes. Subconsciously, we learn behavior skills from other people. But when you're on social media, you don't learn any of that, because you've got a screen in front of you. Yes? The only extent that you will probably have is just conversation. But communication and interaction is a whole package. There's the speech, there's body language, there's interacting with heart and minds. All of that comes into it. And what social media does, it individualizes a person. It isolates a person. It isolates a person. And you don't pick up personal skills. And because of that, it's led to so much problems. So, for example, frustrations. It's led to loneliness. It's led to isolation. This loneliness and isolation, because of social media, it is a killer disease. Many people have now become having suicidal thoughts is because of isolation. Because when you're isolated, it's like what happens with your mind, it skews. When you're isolated, what happens with your mind? Your mind is skewed. You have a skewed vision, and you begin to develop narrow thoughts. When you develop narrow thoughts, what Shaitan does, Shaitan starts filling a person's mind with so many negativities. So many negativities. Fills it with a lot of that. And what happens is that when your mind is filled with a lot of negativities, okay, then you begin to conjure a false reality. A false reality. People like them who now have a mindset, they become very skeptical. They become very negative. They become very suspicious of people. They're always frustrated. They're always angry. So when you talk to them, you know that this person is not right. Have you ever noticed people sometimes experience that? Yes? You experience? Why is that? One of the reasons is because of isolation.
Yeah.
But when you interact with other people, your mind broadens. Your mind broadens. When you talk to other people, when you discuss, you begin to realize, because by talking to other people, the right people, what do? They take you out of your shell. And then you begin to witness, you know what? I've been deluded all this time. That's why, even though that we have social media, never ever underestimate the importance of social interaction, being in the company of the righteous people. Now, some of the harms that we can think about social media, I've got a few listed here, but I'm just going to mention a few things, okay? There's 3 things that I've kind of pointed out, which are probably one of the most fundamental problems of social media. Though there are certain benefits, just as a caveat here, just as a disclaimer, I'm not giving a fatwa whether social media is halal or haram, okay, right? This has got nothing to do with halal or haram matters. What I'm trying to aim at here is how we navigate through these difficulties, okay? Number 1 is, first understand the nature of social media, misrepresentation of what is displayed. First of all, social media never gives the full picture. The first rule to remember about social media, never ever gives you a full picture. It only gives you a snapshot into a person's life. Only probably 5%, 95% you do not know. 95% you do not know. When you see, for example, on social media, a couple having a social media account and they are displaying their affection towards one another in public, when they're displaying their affection, when they're displaying their love, and they're displaying their jolly relationship in front of the whole world, remember that's only 5% of what they're showing. 95% nobody knows besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So first thing to know is that never to be fooled that what you see on social media is the actual reality. It misrepresents the reality. So that's the first thing to note. Number 2 is addiction. It's addiction. How is it addiction? It's addicted because once you're hooked on it, you cannot let go of it. It makes you heedless of your obligation, and it lessens your remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is nothing but just distraction. You know, first, there used to be a time that where if you want to gain knowledge, you had to read books. And to read books, you had to make time. Then those books were now then displayed on long videos. They made DVDs, for example, or they made CDs out of them, for example. Like, I remember once, like Fadali Amal. Okay? So I remember once said that, you know, Fadali Amal, because many people used to do Fadali Amal. Then this was now transferred onto CD or an MP3. So you can listen to it. So when you're in the car, you can listen to it. Yes? So it's like a reading, like a book reading. It's like that reading. Nowadays people find that boring now. Now people cannot watch, unless if it's a movie, unfortunately, right? They cannot listen to a lecture of at least 1 hour. Because the retention span has gone so low that people, when they say this is a 1 hour lecture or 2 hours lecture, an Islamic lecture, people find it boring. Because the retention span has gone so low. Now people like reels. Now people like shorts, YouTube shorts. Now, what's the other one? Begin with the T. Go on. TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. Why is it called TikTok? Because the time is passing. TikTok is nothing, just wasting your time. Yes? Why is that? It's because these are now, because when you become so exposed to these reels and reel shorts, your retention span is low. Because of that, forget listening to a 1 hour lecture. You were not able to even read a book. People find it very difficult to read books. That's where the real knowledge was. That's where the real ilm, where real knowledge was. So it becomes an addiction. And that's why, you know, sometimes, before you know, even in the month of Ramadan, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us, but even in the month of Ramadan, we just time pass just by flicking. On Facebook, just flicking. TikTok, just flicking. And before you know it, half an hour, 35, 40 minutes have passed. That time that you've got to spend with dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's gone on wasting. Why? It's because you've got no objective. When people are on social media, what's the objective of going to social media? Just passing time. When you're passing time, you see Shaitan and Iblis, like last night in my tafsir I was discussing this ayah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, wala tattabi'u khutuwati shaitan, innahu lakum aduwwun mubin. Do not follow in the footsteps of the devil because he's your clear enemy. Wala tattabi'u khutuwati shaitan. So the khutuwat is one khitwa, which means small steps. One is qadam, that you take leap steps, and one khitwa or khatwa and khitwa, different Arabic linguistics. It means taking small steps. What the Mufassirun mentioned here is that when Iblis and Shaitan, when he wants to misguide somebody, he misguides them gradually through small stages. Through small stages, he makes you start off with something that may appear seemingly halal, but then he has a particular path on a new goal, an objective for that person. He has already set a goal. He starts with the halal way and then slowly navigates him to a haram way, and before you know it, now he's addicted to a haram. Addicted to a haram. Social media is a good example, because with social media you're able to interact with people globally. Like the world has now become a global village. And now, when a man, for example, when he now gets connected with a woman, for example, right, even though they talk about something Islamic, but then slowly, the more they talk, the more they develop an attachment, then they want to see each other, and before you know it, now they're involved in a haram relationship. See, that's how Shaitan knows and misguides a person. Now, Shaitan and Iblis, even though he's locked away, but there's one thing that's not locked away, is our nafs and desires. Our nafs and desires are still with us, and will remain with us till our death. Even this is very chalak. Even this is very clever and very conniving. How? It's because that once you are addicted to something, it becomes very difficult for you to get off. And if your nafs plays a lot of games on you. It plays a lot of games. When it wants to misguide somebody, the first step is to misguiding someone is making them heedless from Allah. You know, Iblis, if he wants to misguide anyone, the first step is makes them heedless from Allah. Yes? And he makes them ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like when Iblis, when he was expelled from Jannah, he made a few promises to Allah. He challenged Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. You will not find majority of your servants ungrateful. Because when the servant becomes ungrateful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they become heedless of Allah. Shaitan, how does he make somebody heedless from Allah? Is making him waste time. Imam Ghazali actually mentioned this. That how Shaitan wants to misguide somebody, he first and foremost gets them involved in those things which are futile. Even though they may not be sin in itself, but they'll be a waste of time, there's no benefit. Imam Ghazali, he says that if a person involves in a sin, that will lead a person astray. But if a person is involved in those things which are futile, neither harm and neither benefit, even that is also a trap of Shaitan. So when a person passes so much time on social media, right, they become addicted then as Imam Qayyim Jawziyah mentions, that once a person gets hooked up and once becomes addicted to futile things, then they find it very difficult to find time to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have you noticed? Sometimes you feel that when a person is so addicted to social media, when they say, okay, read a bit of Quran, when they're reading Quran, they fall asleep. They feel tired. They feel drowsy. They feel sleepy. You know why? It's because the heart is not connected to the dhikr of Allah. It doesn't feel that ecstasy. It doesn't feel that pleasure in recitation of the words of Allah. Why? Is because our heart has become already filled with other futile things that which our nafs now gains pleasure, that we don't get pleasure from the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is a very, very, very tough situation that we're living in now, a tough time that we're living in. So the second thing is addiction, as I just mentioned. So the first thing is misrepresentation, number two is addiction. And number three is, why is it that what impact that social media has is seeking validation, seeking acceptance from other people. You see, this is also is a disease of the heart. What I mean by that is that sometimes people feel that they need to prove themselves to other people. If you've got a good, happy relationship, they feel compelled that they have to show to the whole world to get clickbait or just to get likes, seeking other people's validation. So validation and acceptance, right, from other people. What happens is when you seek validation from other people, you put your honor and your izzat in the hands of other people. And in the world and in life, you cannot please everyone. You cannot please everyone. And number two is that when you try to please other people in the world, please other people, please your friend, there's a kind of disingenuousness. You're not being genuine to yourself. You're not being honest with yourself. Even if it means you lose your own self-respect. You know, you have certain YouTubers, I don't watch them, but there are certain YouTubers, right, that they have millions of subscribers because of funny things that they do. They do one of the most silliest things, and like the comedians, right? They say one of the most silliest things, they do one of the most silliest things that a human being will not do, but it gives them likes, it gives them subscription, it gives them views, it gives them millions of views. So see, just for the sake of validation, people are willing to even compromise their own self-respect, compromise their own self-value. And so seeking validation for other people, it results in a number of problems. Number one is you're not genuine. You don't become a genuine person. You're not authentic. There's no authenticity in you. You're doing this as a facade just to please other people, number one. Number two, you put your honor and acceptance in other people's hands. And that becomes like a desperation. You know, like for example, when a person has love for money, right? And they don't have enough, even though they've got enough money, it's still not enough for them. Likewise, there are people they've got following, but it's not enough, they need more following. Number three, it becomes competition. It becomes like a competitive market. That this person has got 1 million subscribers, I need to get 2 million subscribers. This person got 2 million subscribers, I need to get 3 million subscribers. It becomes competitive. Yes? And number three, about seeking validation from other people is that it compromises your own self-respect. It compromises your own self-respect. Even if it means that you compromise your own self-respect, you compromise your own privacy just so that you can get more likes. This is dangerous. But yet, despite all of that, you will never get happiness and sukoon. This is the problem that many people, that when they want to pursue happiness, when they want happiness, they seek happiness thinking that happiness lies in, I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of following, I have a lot of money, I have a nice car, I have a nice house. You see, this is how shaitan deludes a person. Yes? Now, what's the solution to this? Is the verse of the Holy Quran that I just recited. And know the Quran subhanAllah is such an amazing kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it is applicable in every single condition and circumstance. And I will argue and say that in the world of social media, this ayat itself that I just recited, which I will explain, it gives a perfect example of social media. You can relate this 110% with social media. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, the reality of social media, the reality of this dunya. I'lamu, all people know. أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب. That the worldly life, number one, is la'ibun. It is nothing but just amusements, games. Yes, games. La'ibun. Walahwun is futile entertainment. People play games and you get entertainment from social media. Yes. Wazinatun. It is adornment. Seeing things, seeing apparent beauty, seeing things which are not appropriate. I'm sure you know what I mean. Zinatun. اعلموا أنما الحياة لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم, competing with each other. وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد. Okay, sorry. Tafakhur basically means, it's a competition but competing of arrogance, showing who's better than the other. وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد, and competing in abundance of wealth, family and children. So this is exactly what it is. With social media, it's all competition. That how much I can get, that how much following I have, how much people listen to me, and how much subscription I can have more than the other people. You see, there you go. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a beautiful example. The example of all of this apparent glamour is like the example that when you have a farmer, I'm just paraphrasing, that when you have a farmer, that he is planting a seed and he has a beautiful orchard and there a beautiful vegetation grows. And what happens with that vegetation? It only lasts for a short period of time. Eventually what happens? It withers away. It withers and it becomes old, it becomes dry shaft. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, what was something beautiful, look what the end result is. Now like for example, in an autumn season, you have a tree that has got beautiful fruits, it's got beautiful green trees. Autumn season, what happens? They all fall and they're all on the ground. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, this is exactly the case and the example of worldly life. So what you see on social media, the glamour that you see in social media is only temporary. It's not a true reality. The reality Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states is that this is only temporary, but in the long term, eventually, people will forget them. They will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And everything, on all the efforts that they've expended on social media and trying to please other people, eventually what's going to happen? All of the effort is going to go into waste. So the end result is, and sorry, I've gone slightly over time, but the point that was the takeaway message is, number one, is that never be fooled by social media. Minimize your time on social media. The more you minimize your time on your social media, the more time you will make to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to take time to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, it will help you to become productive in life. Productive in life. Don't waste your time on certain things. Don't invest all of your time in those things that's not going to bring you benefit, because it will catch up to you in the future. And finally, this is the month of Ramadan. It's the month of fasting. We are now almost entering the last 10 days of Ramadan. Make the most of it. These are the best nights of Ramadan, and in the 10 nights, we know that there are odd nights. The odd nights, one of them is a possibility of being Laylatul Qadr. Yes? Use this time, and it's not too late. We still have a chance, and use this time so that we can connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and control our social media. When you're able to control social media, inshallah, it helps us to discipline. When it helps us to discipline, then we will begin to realize our main purpose. It helps us to remain focused on our main purpose of our creation of our life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to understand. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to act on what's been said. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah wa bihamdihi, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
दुआ से पहले मैं हमारे यूथ के यंगस्टरों को भी बहुत मुबारकबाद पेश करता हूँ कि अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह इन लोगों की कोशिश और इन लोगों की मेहनत से ऐसे प्रोग्राम एवरी वीक ऑर्गेनाइज होते हैं। अल्लाह ताला इन लोगों को खूब जज़ाए खैर अता फरमाए और दुनिया आखिरत में बेहतर अल्लाह अता करे। बहुत ही मेहनत से ये नौजवान हमारी कोशिश कर रहे हैं। आप खुद दुआ भी करें इनके लिए कि अल्लाह ताला इनके इन कार्य खैर में खूब हिम्मत भी दें और अल्लाह ताला उनको और तरक्कियाँ से मालामाल करे। मैं आप तमाम दोस्तों का मशकूर हूँ, ममनून हूँ, मेरे भाइयों का बहुत मशकूर हूँ, नौजवानों का। अल्लाह ताला उनको और जज़ाए खैर अता फरमाए और ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोगों को, नौजवानों को मस्जिद में लाने वाले बने। मैं हज़रत मुफ्ती साहब का भी बहुत शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह बहुत ही कीमती और बहुत ही अहम बात बताई और बहुत ही इस वक्त के हालात और एतबार के हवाले से बहुत ही अहमियत रखती है। अल्लाह ताला हमें शैतान के मकर फरेब से हमारी हिफाजत
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونستعينك ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إنا كنا من الظالمين وإلهكم إله واحد لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وعنت الوجوه الحي القيوم يا أحد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك منه نبيك وحبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذك منه نبيك وحبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وأنت المستعان وليك البلاغ ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وقنا عذاب القبر وقنا عذاب الحشر وقنا عذاب الفقر وقنا عذاب الدين واحشرنا يوم القيامة مع المتقين مع الأبرار. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.